Every time, right as I get to like 2, it pops up going, your microphone's not on. Do you want to turn it back on?
It's like, no fucking shit, my microphone's not on. It's on purpose. It's on purpose. I finally put up my last little bit of...
you finally got that fucking stupid ass size frame.
Yeah, 13 by 19 frame. Who makes fucking... Marvel, apparently, makes 13
leave it to
by
Marvel to
19
ruin
posters.
female characters and fucking artwork.
Boy, howdy. And how. What's up, everybody? My name is Sam, and this is the internet where things happen. And today, this is kind of, I don't know. Is it a vidcast without Cole? I don't know. I don't know what this is. This can be whatever.
This is like the premiere vidcast without Cole.
Yeah. No, it's
Miss you, buddy.
It's just. Well, sorry, Cole. I love you. This is me and Zach, of course, my friend Zach James. You know him. So this is going to be an interesting one because it's Zach had a good idea, which was something that you may not know. I know Zach has talked about it a little bit more than I have, but me and Zach both fancy ourselves writers, and we are both working currently on some pretty heavy long-term writing projects at the moment. And so Zach was just like, hey, what would make a good video is if the two of us sat down and talked about like our writing process and what writing is like for us and things of that nature. And I said, hey, that's a good idea. Let's do that. And so this is us doing that. So yeah, this is me and Zach talking about writing.
Yeah. I feel like I should have went out and bought like a black turtleneck to like wear for the, as an artiste. I need now as an artist, and then you just take the pen, slip it. Or do the thing where like the hand is on the elbow, and then you're like, like you're appraising art at a fucking like art show or something.
Just stroking your chin like pensively, just staring off into the distance. And in your head, you're just like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm looking at.
Just got to keep up errors.
Basically, I go to museums all the time, and I just like appreciate the art for what it is. But I'm just like, I haven't
been to a museum in years. Once everything opens up, because I'm real close to like the Smithsonian and all that. So,
yeah. I you know what the funny thing is? So, and I've talked to you about this before, but the Seattle Art Museum. I still, in all this time, have never been to the Seattle Art Museum, which is a shame because I love stuff like that. But it's even weirder because, of course, the abbreviation for the Seattle Art Museum is SAM.
Well, consider my mind blown.
Oh, I know, right? You're using alphabets to determine.
Mother of God, who would have known?
What? But the funny thing about it is that like on like the letters SAM are just big, like slap on the side of the building. So like when you walk past it, you just see Sam everywhere. And so it's just like, it's a wonder I've never been before.
Oh, just you wait. When the time comes for me to visit you, we're going to be walking up and be like, Sam! I'm going to like grab your shirt and be like pointing at it and you cause a fucking scene.
Like, it's like, I wish you never came. I wish you never visited. I guess, so here's what I wanted to start with actually, because I'm sure you have some stuff that you want to ask as well, but I think a good place to kind of start would be to talk about like, when did you like get into writing? Like when did you like figure out that you enjoyed writing?
It was for me. It was in 7th and 8th grade was when I really started to dip my toes into it because we had a bunch of creative writing projects. But it wasn't until I got to high school that I really kind of embraced it. But I really wasn't like capable of coming up with my own original stories yet. So what I would do, and I still have the notebook somewhere, I should try to find them sometime, is I would write like, my go-to was the plot of the first Resident Evil. But I would write it where the characters, like all the main characters were there, but then all me and my buddies were characters in it as well. And then, or it'd be like, we'd be like parts of like different teams and we'd stumble across each other and we'd have to, and that's how I would write like introductions, who are you? I'm Kevin. Who are you? Oh, I'm Brett, and basically just add my own scenes and shit like that, but all based in the framework of the first Resident Evil thing. And then I started coming up with original ideas of like zombie movies and I started with some of the the techno thrillers, like what I write now. But a lot of it was just sort of like, okay, I'm going to take this location, I'm going to take sort of this scene as a reference, and I'm going to take these characters based off of whatever fucking movie or video game I'm playing at the time, and I'm going to mash them all together, and see what comes out. And but that's really, by doing that was the big, and I remember Modern Warfare 2 was a huge inspiration for that. I would say 2009 was really where it started for me.
Okay.
And then from there, literally the series that I'm working on finishing now was spawned from just a stupid fucking short story that my friends and I wrote. And in the morning, like free period that we had, my senior year of high school, called Operation Get the Fuck Out of Dodge, or Op GT FOD. And from there, I just sort of kept reworking it. And then about 2016, I was like, I've got a lot of good ideas here. Let me shift this from being like sort of like a comedic, like ha 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 novel with a lot of tongue in cheek shit to being a full on like thriller. And it's kind of worked out.
Yeah. It's actually, it's good because through the process I've been able to read like bits of it, and it's good. Like it's good.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I don't know. Yeah, of course. But my kind of background with it is about the same, so I started writing when I was young. So I've always been a very like creative person. I love I feel fulfilled when I'm doing like creative stuff, and that's not necessarily just writing, but it's like, it is, whatever.
Well, because you do a lot. You do like the musical stuff too and all that. Mm-hmm. You do these videos.
So yeah. So I always like, I thrive in an environment where I'm being creative. And so, I think I may have talked about this on a vidcast before, but like when I was younger, like a lot of those creative pursuits and like some of the artsy stuff, I was kind of like, there were particular people in my life at the time who discouraged it in me, and but it never kind of stopped me. It just made me like not prioritize it, I guess. So I still did the stuff, but I think that like if I had that encouragement from a younger age, from like important figures in my life, certain important figures in my life, I think I would have been in a completely different place now, as far as like with creativity and like creative stuff, and I might even be doing it like a career at this point, but. Life happens. Life shakes out.
Let me say one thing real quick. If you've got a family member, child, niece, nephew, grandparent, or grandson, granddaughter, whatever, and they're creative, and you tell them not to pursue their creative things, you tell them it's a waste of time, you're a fucking asshole. Let them try and figure it out for themselves. Sorry, I had to say that.
No, I
because it irritates the shit out of me.
Oh yeah, no, it's incredibly, it's frustrating, and it's not good. Here's the thing about I think a lot of parents have this mindset that they're going to bring a child into the world, and then that child is going to like do their bidding and be their will. But the problem with that is that you're not creating a robot. You're creating another human with the exact same pathos and free will and things as you. And so they're going to have their own desires, and your job is to not make a copy clone of you. Your job is to encourage and to nurture this person. We didn't make the choice to be in this world. You made that choice as a parent. And so the least you can do is encourage your child to be their own person.
Or if you're like my parents, you didn't really make the choice, but you sort of like, well, we're in it for the long haul now.
Right, exactly. And again, that's big, broad, sweeping strokes, right? Because not all parents are like that. Obviously, there's there's a ton of parents. My dad is wonderful, and my dad, and
of course, man,
like
that's
other
Saint
things
Tim.
like that. So. Saint Tim,
Saint Tim's doing his own
like,
creative stuff too. This episode brought to you by Baked Red Gourmet Popcorn.
.com, baby. BakedRedGourmet.com. No.
I still need to order some. I actually haven't ordered any yet.
Yeah, he's got new flavors.
What's he got now?
He's got Orange Rush, which is
like the soda. Oh no, that's Crush.
It's called Orange Rush. I think probably to avoid like copyright, but it's triple second orange Kool-Aid infused.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and then he redid the Apple Crown flavor, which is more apple flavor in it than it used to. So he's making moves.
Yeah, I've been slacking on that gourmet popcorn. I need to get some. I'm probably gonna get.
He did.
What?
He did recently drop the prices of them too.
He
dropped the prices.
Well, I know that I'm definitely gonna get some for stocking stuffers come Christmas time. So
yeah,
I'll be talking to you soon, Saint Tim.
So let's see. But yeah, so again, I kept it on the back burner even though I still did it. And so the way that I write is that like I write different things based on the mood that I'm in. So I write poetry sometimes, I write lyrics, sometimes I write short stories and longer stories and things of that nature depending on like what kind of mood I'm in and how I'm feeling. And I remember, and again, like where I really started writing was, the thing that inspired me was you had Resident Evil, I had Kingdom Hearts. And so
I'm going to find that fan fiction eventually. I'm going to find it.
You'll never find it because you'll never ever figure out what the username was.
Well, you gave me the title of it. I've got that much to work with.
I did give you the title of it. So when I was in middle school, I wrote this like Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts has been in my life for I've got the tattoo of it. Even though the game is frustrating and the story is weird and dumb, it still played a very important role in my life. And so I in middle school I wrote this Kingdom Hearts fan fiction that was basically like the plot of like the next several Kingdom Hearts, and it was just this edgelord bullshit. But like, I loved it. Okay, so there is one person who may even potentially see this video who has read it.
Really?
And I don't know if she remembers anything about it, but she has read it. So it's the one person on this planet.
Shout yourself out in the comments if it's you.
If she's seen it. But yeah, but that's like kind of how I started in like using other people's characters and kind of making my own stories, and eventually I started doing original stuff.
Well, isn't there a newly formed Sam vs. Sam fanfiction.net account as well?
Oh, fuck you. We were talking about this on a vidcast that came out. I'm pretty sure that vidcast will be out by the time before this comes out. But Zach in between episodes was like, check your email, and it was he's like, well, he asked me what my email address was, and then I looked at my email and I had a activation code from fanfiction.net under the Sam vs. Sam name. So I guess there's that.
What's terrible is I've already forgotten the password too.
Who knows at this point? I'll reset.
That is true.
And it's all gonna be my ship fanfiction of you and Cole. So.
Oh no!
This is the legacy you created.
Oh no! As they gazed into each other's eyes.
So one of the things about me is that like I never went to college properly. So because I burnt out really hard after high school, and one of the things that I thought about doing before I went to as I was going into college was journalism, because I thought I enjoyed like journalism, and then I took journalism in high school. I fucking hated it. And so
it's like me with my one photography class that I dropped after about a week. I was like, this is fucking dumb.
Yeah, exactly. So I hated journalism because it was such a different structure than what you like for a creative, the structure of journalism is just like too restrictive for me. And I'm sure there are plenty of creative types that are like journalism and are okay with that. But like for me, it's not.
It's different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would just do from there. I would just like write whatever kind of came to me. And I'd never really done a lot of like long form story telling. I have a lot of like Google Docs and notebooks scattered around that have like various ideas and like poems and things that I've written in the past, but like I've never really like sat down and stuck to like an actual story for a lengthy period of time. Because like in the past I approach things differently than I do now. So I've my style has changed a lot over the last several years. So.
Oh, well, it's I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I've got that too, where I've got probably 2 boxes worth of just loosely fucking tear outs that have different story, ideas scrawled out or bullet points or fucking chapters that I wrote out or some shit. But I
was looking at I had one of my notebooks like literally sitting right here really? A little bit ago, but I moved it to the living room because I was actually scribbling in it the other night. So.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, everyone's style changes. I mean, if I were to send you the current manuscript of Deception, which is the novel that I'm working on self-publishing now, the first one in the series, and I sent you even like the 2015 version or the 2013 version, or God forbid the original version of Op GT FOD, you'd be like, holy shit, like, are you sure you wrote both of these? Because these are vastly different.
Well, so I remember reading like an earlier version of it several years ago, and it was still good, but like you can tell that like your style has evolved and improved over the years.
Well, what's
very much so.
Well, and this might be a big thing for you is because I know that we both read a lot. Actually, in your moving vid, you actually talked about how you are starting to replenish your like physical book, your book collection, which. I get that. I mean, I brought maybe 1/10 of my total library with me for my little bookshelf. I need to get a proper bookshelf to like put up in the living room so I can start doing that as well.
And for a long time, I had donated a lot of my books. I had like a couple series that I kept, but like I donated a lot of my old books, and I got a Kindle, and I was just reading on my Kindle. But because
it's
like
so convenient, I totally get it.
It's really convenient. But like if you like, I've never had like, because this is the first time where I'm at now. This is the first time I've ever lived by myself, and so I've never had a lot of personal space for like my shit. Yeah. And so when I was like setting up what I wanted to do with my apartment, I was just like, I can have books. And so like I just have like this wish list on Amazon of just like books that I want to buy and like have. And I realized that I couldn't find my fucking copies of the Lord of the Rings series, and I was like, where the fuck did those go? So I
dude, just spoil yourself and go get like the really nice copies that they have at like Books A Million or whatever.
Oh, I'm planning on it.
Oh, speaking of which, let me show you what I nabbed at Books A Million. There's a little bit of a sad story behind it too, but let me go grab it first.
So what'd you get? What'd you get?
I got this like nice hard copy of Dune.
Ooh, okay.
Because I fucking love the first book of Dune, and I've read the first 2 books so far. I still need to read the rest. The sad story behind this, though, is back when Sheena and I were still dating, and we actually got together in Jacksonville, Florida last year. I remember we were in a Barnes & Noble, and we saw this, and I picked it up, and I basically was acting like I was going to buy it for myself. And I was like, no, it's yours. And she fucking loved it, because she's the one that... she bought me a bunch of the paperback copies of it too.
Oh, gotcha.
But yeah, so I saw this and I was like, let me get this,
Yeah.
Books A Million or Barnes & Noble.
Let me do this for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I live really close to a Barnes & Noble now, which is very
apparently I do too. I drove by the other day. I was like, how long has that fucking been there?
What's kind of like your style? Like, how do you gather your thoughts together and be like, okay, I'm going to set out and I'm going to write this thing and I'm going to write this book. And like, because like, I think you'll agree with me, starting is the hardest part.
Yes.
Of doing the process, the hardest like mental part of it, I would say. So how do you like convince yourself to go?
Mostly because like, I will think about cool ideas and how I can implement them, whether it be in a continuation of a series or if it could be a standalone idea. And from there, I'll be like, okay, let's just use Occupant for example. Got that idea because I've loved science fiction for as long as I can remember, and I also love horror, even though it scares the shit out of me. As good horror should.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Probably that's part of the enjoyment of it. Cole would disagree, but part of the enjoyment of horror is being scared by it.
And I'm talking horror as in like 1970s, 1980s, even 1990s, like psychological classic, horror. You know that. Less so horror and more dread, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Like terror.
Like, you know, not like jump scares are okay, but not when they're in excess, and not just like today's horror genre, which is just gratuitous fucking violence and gore.
Like Junji Ito stuff. Have you read Uzumaki?
I have not, but I feel like you've recommended that to me before.
Well, we did it on the podcast back in the day. It's if you like, it's a graphic novel, and if you like horror and like just feeling that sense of dread.
Oh, like that one where it's like, what the fuck is it called? Oh shit, I'll have to try to remember later. But it's basically there's an earthquake. It's a graphic novel done in like manga style, where like there's an earthquake and this mountain basically shears in half, and there's a bunch of human shaped holes in the mountain, and then
that's one.
Oh, is it one of his?
It's
okay. Yes, well, then I've read at least one of his. What the fuck is that one called?
I can't remember, but just hearing the concept.
That one was freaky though. So that was spawned by a combination of the Alien Covenant trailer dropping in December 2016. I had all you guys as fairly new friends. We'd been talking for about a year at that point in the Slack back in those days. And I was like, you know what?
For real.
I want to write a fucking science fiction horror novel. I like these old style sci-fi horror movies, Aliens, The Thing, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, pretty much anything John Carpenter did. I was like, I think I can make this work. I'm going to make it in my own universe. I'm going to pull some ideas from certain things as like little references. I'm going to drop certain, references and homages and shit like that. And I'm just going to go. So I wrote Occupant, though. I've got basically two ways of approaching it. I've got ones that I'll outline, much like the Thriller series. And then I've got ones where I have an outline, which Occupant, I didn't even write anything down. It was all mental. But like, say, Persona non grata, which is second in the queue to rewrite after I finish writing the one I'm working on now, is I would write out like the main beats, or like, I want this to happen in this chapter. I want this to happen in this chapter. And then maybe I'd be like, okay, sub bullets B and C are going to happen, to get him from this point to this point to this point. And then from there, I'd be like, I'm just going to write whatever the fuck seems like a good idea, and what I feel would naturally happen. Or, okay, now he's going to have a flashback because he's in this environment where he has nothing to do but think. And his mind is so fucking broken that he's going to go back to a traumatic event and things like that. Or with Occupant, okay, I want to get from here to here. How do I do that in a way that just doesn't go fucking SpongeBob, 5 minutes later or whatever? Okay, I can use this slow opening, because that's what I took with Occupant 2, was that sort of old school movie of, slow opening, world building, character building, getting you to sort of know what's going on. And then wham, something happens and it just goes off the fucking rails from that point on. So I looked at that as, okay, I've got from this point to this point. I could skip it and just be lazy. Instead, I'm going to do some world building, some character building, things like that. And then, okay, inciting event happens. What do they do to get out of immediate danger? Okay, it's pure chaos. What do they do after they get back to their safety? All right, it seems like it's relatively safe. Everyone's still got some frayed nerves. There was some shit that went on before all that they're still dealing with. Okay, they're not alone. What do we do now? Shit like that. How do I introduce this in a natural way? How do I do that? And it's it's sort of that's my mindset and how I approach the storytelling. And then it's like, how do I write it in a way that's not cliche? Because it's so easy to do that nowadays too. That seems natural and that really engages the reader. Now, also what I do, this is my personal thing, is basically as I'm writing it, I picture what I would want to. Basically, I'm directing a movie in my head. I'm looking at the shots. I'm basically building the environment, looking at how the characters would look, how they would move, what they would say, what the lighting is like, all that. And I'm taking that mental snapshot of that, movie in my head, and that's what I'm putting on paper. And that's how I'm able to get a lot of the little details that I add that I'm sure you've picked up on. So that's, wow, talk about fucking short story long. Sorry.
No, that's what this is for, man.
Basically, yeah, to answer your original question, to get started, I just sort of get an idea and I start working it and seeing if I can make it work all the way. Or there might be one, like there was one that I had where it ended up not panning out to be a full novel, so I'm just going to release it as a novella, as sort of a sub book.
The way, because we have similar approaches to it, I think too. But when you think about like the concept of like how we do our outlines and how we write our stories, it's like that base structure, right? Because you need a structure in the way that it's kind of like for us, a novel, a story is kind of like a body, where you have this outline that's a structure, and that's your skeleton, and then you're filling in the muscles and the skin with like your imagination. And the way that kind of I look at it, I'm a fucking set piece dude. Like I love set pieces. I love that big, high drama, high action thing. And that's a lot of what I do, is that like I kind of like set my outline structure and I kind of know generally what I want to happen, but I love writing those like set piece parts. And I love taking like the story and building it around those things. Yeah. Right. And that's sometimes I think that could potentially be kind of like a backwards way to do it sometimes. And I wind up doing a lot of like revision as I go back through.
Well, listen, I've been rewriting and revising these fucking books for years. So, I mean, I've got a paper copy of Deception printed out sitting on my coffee table that I'm literally going line by line with a pencil to do a line edits with,
Yeah. So it's kind of like this process, but I love that. Like, I love the drama. I love the exciting parts, and kind of like filling in the more like the smaller details is kind of like my afterthought. But because that's how my brain works a lot of the time. So I have tried to start writing and like do so many stories and so many long form stories and novels in the past that have just never panned out. And this is, and have never become anything. And it's because of just like my insistence that I can just do it. And like, I don't have an outline at all. Like I don't have like something to focus on. And so I kind of like, another thing I kind of briefly touched on in a vidcast in the past was, I'm working on a long form story. I think, and what's going to wind up happening is that it's going to become like a audiobook drama kind of thing, because I'm just really drawn to that format. But like I'm really into it, and I think part of the reason why is because I said, okay, here are all of my main player characters. Here's all of their details about them. Here's where I want the story to start. Here's where I want it to end. Here's all of my outline per chapter. Just like Zach said, here's everything here's all the important beats that I want to happen. And then my task can then become, how do I jump from beat to beat? And I still write those like set piece moments within each chapter just to have some like meat to like work towards and work away from. But because I have this like skeleton around it, I actually have this structure for myself to like get there and do the
that's
thing.
Interesting. So you write your big pieces first, and then you write basically before and after, leading to and from them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because like because I love writing just in general, but like my brain wants to do like the most interesting thing immediately. And that has been a detriment in the past because, again, if you do the most interesting thing and you don't have anything backing you up to like continue to propel you forward to do like the stuff that aren't quite as interesting, then it's going to crumble to pieces and you're just going to have a bunch of fucking set pieces you can't do anything with. And that's going to be problematic. And so I finally was just like, I need to be a fucking adult and actually do a fucking outline, make my skeleton and eat my vegetables, take my medicine, whatever idiom you want to use, and do that. And then I'll have something with structure sound that I can actually carry forward. And I'm pretty like deep. I finished my complete detailed outline for my entire story now. I've finished about. I'm starting into a 5th chapter. I've written about 30,000 words in this story so far, and I'm feeling like really good about it, and like I'm just like it's invigorating. I remember I finished the first chapter. I remember this moment specifically because I finished the first chapter. I really started buckling down on this when quarantine started, when all this stuff, when COVID happened. I mean,
best time to do something is during a time like this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so the funny thing is, back in October of 2019 was when I had the idea, and I had the idea in a dream, which is wild. So I had this like idea, and I was like, this has to exist somewhere. And I looked up like vague plot points. I couldn't find anything like it. So I was just like, oh, I should do something with this. And I started like, I'll put some characters on a piece of paper, and and then quarantine happened. I was dealing with a breakup at the time, and that was around the time when I picked the channel back up. And I was like, you know what? Yeah. And so I was like, this was about the time I picked the channel back up because I did some stuff around October of 2019 with the channel, a couple videos, and then I stopped. So I picked the channel back up. I started actually buckling down and writing, and now, I'm feeling inspired by both of the things that I'm doing, which is awesome. And actually, in the new set, like if you look back there, actually my big ass head's in the way, but if you look back there, that like, wait, where's my hand going? Over here, there. That like portraits are like 4x8s or
the 3x3.
A photograph is.
I've got a better angle on it. That's why.
Yeah. They're character arts that I commissioned from a really talented artist on Instagram. It's Teo Alex.
Shout out to him.
I shouted him out. Yeah, there's actually I put it. There's a detailed shot of all the characters in my moving video that I did a little bit ago, where you can see. So I shouted him out in there. I'm shouting him out again.
He's talented. Fantastic, and he's not very expensive either. Like if you want some good artwork done for cheap, because it's all digital art. He did for my Instagram. He did my basically my portrait for that.
Well, actually, that episode of the vidcast.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Where my fucking iPad didn't record.
Yeah, that portrait of Zach in that episode where he was gone because of the war crimes he committed in Yugoslavia.
The soft boy fight special or whatever we called it.
Yeah, something like that. But that was the portrait that Alex did for Zach. So he's a very talented guy. But I did that because like I finally felt inspired by a thing that I was doing that I was actually planning on following through with, and I'm actually following through with. And I got that as like more inspiration. It's like, here's my vision for what these characters look like. Okay, now I have it. I can reference it. I can look at it. I can feel inspired by it, and then I just have it. I have it on my wall, and it's the best.
It's a fucking good feeling, isn't it?
It's a very good feeling. Very good feeling.
Yeah, I think. I think that once I get the book out, I'm gonna send Alex a copy, and I think I'm gonna do the same thing where I'm gonna commission him to do a couple of busts of the main characters, of like how I envision them.
Yeah, I told myself that I was when I finished half of the book, the story, which I've outlined for 20 chapters. So when I finish my 10th chapter, I'm going to commission the antagonist of the story from Alex. So I'm looking forward to
So
that.
who do you find it's easier to write? Do you find it's easier to write the heroes or the antagonists?
I feel okay. So I feel like it's easier for me to write the heroes because I relate to them more. So like if I'm playing a video game where you have a choice to be a bad guy or a good guy, I always run a good guy as my first playthrough just because like that's just where I gravitate to. Like I'm not like a malicious person. I try not to be. Like I try to be a good person. And so I identify with it more. I have more fun writing the antagonists.
Antagonists are
because like you just get to be like this fucking crazy person. You've listened to, so one of the things that I did as part of this, just to like give myself this like edification, was when I finished my first chapter, I recorded it as like a rough like pass through just to like get a feel for like what that would be like. And one of the villains, like you listened to it, the villain that's in that chapter, I had such a blast like playing that, like writing that and like doing that and like having that like crazed feeling in my voice. And like it's weird. It's like a weird empowerment, right? Because like I'm never gonna be that. So like pretending and being able to pretend to do that is just
I think that's what it is. It's almost like escapism within escapism, because you're writing a character that really isn't reflective of yourself. But let's be honest, every character has a little bit of truth behind them. Like me, a lot of my antagonists in the military thriller novels are like sort of disgraced former like special operators and stuff like that, who have fully embraced either, you know, the mercenary mindset or just fuck it, you know, I'm gonna take my skills to these guys because I know that they'll take care of me or whatever. And
Sure.
I find it really enjoyable to write bastard characters. I'll go back and I'll read it and I'll be like, man, I fucking hate this guy and I wrote him, but in the good way, you know, like
yeah. It was like, but because that's what's supposed to happen. Like that's the thing about it too, is like if you're a writer and you write a character that you despise and the intention is for that character to be despised, if you hate him, it's kind of a good indicator that the people that you want to read your stuff is going to also hate him. You know what I mean? So, or them or whoever you're writing. So I think that's
well, I remember for the longest time the most difficult part for me to write was characters and dialogue that didn't sound like stilted. And a caveat within that, which is why I sort of made my jab for the pre-roll toward Marvel with their female characters, is I used to be awful at writing women. I just didn't know how to.
Yeah.
And I mean, it makes sense at the time. You know, I started writing these when I was 18 years old. You know, I'd had a couple of girlfriends and that was it. Whereas, you know, and then I discovered the secret, you know, women are fucking people. You know, just write them as people.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. It's just like, if you like, that's a lot of people think so hard about like, okay, I need to think woman when you write a female character. There's like, just write them like they're a person with interests and pathos. And that's all you have to do. Don't make them a fucking sex object. Don't make them subservient. Like, just write a person. Yeah. Just write a normal person with agency, and you've done it. Congratulations, you've cracked the code.
It's like in one book, one of the main characters has a wife who is a detective in the NYPD, and so and there's a certain part where she does some badass shit. But I didn't write it as like a go get 'em girl, you know, women power, like that ham-fisted fucking women, you know, women get it done scene in fucking Endgame, which if I ever do a cut of that, I'm gonna get me and my friends all like the male hero costumes. We're gonna be like, all right, you get them, as they're all cracking beers and like flipping burgers on a grill and shit like that, put their feet up for 5 minutes.
I do get why they did that, but I get it
100%, and I just hate how pandering it felt. And even more so because, so I don't know if you watch it, but they just wrapped up season 2 of The Boys on Amazon.
I started watching it. It's so good.
They do a good thing in season 1 and a really good way in season 2 of writing good female characters that have their empowering moments that feel natural.
Well, because like part of the plot of season 2 is that they have now 3 women heroes on the squad. And
the thing is, girls get it done. Girls get it done. Yeah, so I won't spoil it, but there's a great scene in the last episode where there's someone's just getting the shit kicked out of him by 3 female characters, and Frenchie just goes, "Girls really do get it done," like all wide-eyed.
I love Frenchie so much.
Like, I go back and I read my stuff, and like, especially with the women, like the character was just so fucking stilted. I'm like, what was I thinking?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I get it, a lot of it comes up to freaking life experience and dealing with women and all that. I'm also spoiled though, because a lot of the female characters I write are based off of, and most of the characters I write are based off of real people. So I'm able to, I know how they speak, I know their mannerisms, I know how they would approach a certain situation. Or if I don't, I have the luxury to go, hey, how would you approach this?
How would you deal with this? Yeah. I'm very lucky because that was the other thing too, is that like I grew up with a lot of female cousins and family members, and so I've just kind of had that around me and never really thought about it. So I've always had that mindset where it's just like, oh yeah, it's just a person, you know, this is somebody that I know, you know. And so I've been lucky to kind of like have that experience around me my entire life. And so just write people.
Yeah, that's all it is.
And you just
good, bad, men, women, whatever, you know, whatever they identify as, just write them as people, you know?
I think what I will say is that I think, like, especially nowadays, you know, there's so much like division and exclusion and things of that nature happening in the world right now. And I've obviously talked about it on the channel before, but, you know, I think it's important to highlight like these things about characters and people, because it's important for people in historically marginalized groups to have people and things and characters and stuff in media that they feel represent them. And it's important to highlight those things, but like you also don't have to fucking punch people in the face.
Yeah, I was gonna say, basically, you know, you may have, you know, a black character or a transgender character or whatever. Still write them as don't have that be what their whole character revolves around. I hate that shit. It's so pandery, and it's so just, it reads or watches or whatever, it reads so poorly. But if you have a word, yes, this is them, but it's only part of their identity, they are still a person, you know, that just, it does so much better for the reader, for the viewer, for the listener. It does better for the character, and it does better for representation as a whole. And I know as a fucking white guy, I don't have a fucking light to stand on. Like, yeah, I know. Hold on.
2020,
hold on. Let me turn up my virtue signal a little higher. I don't think they can see it from the space station. But that's just my opinion, you know?
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. I think that's especially important because here's the thing is that there are stories about like characters where like the focus is on like, you know, if you have a gay character who's dealing with like the concept of coming out and things of that nature, because that's the other thing is like there are stories that are about that, where that is okay to like, this is what it is, and this is what the character is about, because that's what the story is about, right? But like, especially in something like if you're writing a military novel, or you're writing a sci-fi novel or something, you know, just unspecific examples, you know, not to. But if you're writing these novels where like that's not what it's about, you can absolutely highlight the fact that this is a part of the character's identity and that it's important. But like, you know, they have to still be a person that interacts with the world in a normal way.
So mine, I don't really have too much diversity in the realm of like LGBT and all that, because it really doesn't. Even if I wanted to, I really wouldn't know how to work it in naturally. But like the character based on you in Occupant, I think there's a reference that he's black, and that's literally it, you know? Yeah. Or like in the military novels, I've got Hispanic characters, I've got, you know, black characters, I've got Asian characters. Literally, it's a descriptor, and that's it.
Sure.
And that's how I approach it, because I don't want that to be that character's whole identity. I want the character's identity to be his identity.
And I think that's fair too, because the thing of it is as well, like you know, I know you, and so I'm not saying this to like.
Oh, look! I'm trending on Twitter. Great.
bad cis white man. Like I'm not trying to like be that guy, but I think it's also important to kind of like recognize that it's hard for somebody who comes from like a particular background to, you know, to tell a big advanced story of an identity like that in an advanced way when they don't have like.
And that's why I don't try to do it.
You know? Exactly. Like so like I have the, you know, my whole thing is, you know, of course, like I am surprised I'm black. I don't know if you knew.
What?
Oh, I know. So I'm a person. And I'm a quarter Mexican. I'm mixed race. So I'm a person of color. I am bisexual, so I'm in the LGBTQ pantheon of pantheon. That's a really powerful way to like live. I'm part of the pantheon.
Honestly,
you know,
I
like
adopt that. That's
I
powerful
like that.
as fuck.
If you're a powerful person in the world of the LGBTQ plus, start calling it a pantheon. yeah. But like I have that kind of experience and background working for me. But like as a bisexual man, you know, I'm not going to sit down and like pretend that I can write about the struggles of like a transgender woman. You know what I mean? That's just not something that I can do with I can go into it with as good of a heart as I want to, but I'm going to do something boneheaded eventually and it's going to blow up in my face. So like, I'm not going to do that. But like, I can include a character in my story that is a transgender woman, and that is her identity, and she can be just a badass character person without that having to be like her whole spot. You know what I mean? So, you know, and that is like, sometimes that is the inclusion that people need to see. You know what I mean? So, that's where I come from with stuff like that. It's just like, you know, you put it's important to put these characters and to have this stuff in your stories and to like have that inclusion, but like, you don't have to like, especially if you're coming from a place where you just don't know, like,
yo,
you know, yeah, right. So yeah. So just do everything, not just story writing, do everything in good faith.
I'm not laughing at what you're saying. Your screen froze on my end, so it was just you like as you were going on.
I love when I edit videos in Premiere. Sometimes like I'll click on a space that I didn't want to, and it'll throw up like a screenshot of what's happening on the other side of my thing, and it'll just be like one of us going like, you know, it's like making this like weird like face like as we're transitioning from like one facial expression to another one. It's the best. It's amazing. I remember when I wrote my first chapter, because again, one of the things that I've struggled with in the past is that like I've never been able to follow through with a big long form story because like I didn't have that structure and I didn't want to do the structure. I just wanted to just say, "But," and here it is. But I finished that first chapter and I recorded it, and I remember reading through it and just being like, wow, I wrote that. And then listening to the recording that I put together of it and just breaking down and like crying because like, holy shit, like I did this. This is like the first like legitimate chapter 1 I've ever like gotten through. And then I wrote chapter 2, and then I wrote chapter 3, and then I wrote like part of chapter 4, and I had like a little bit of a burnout because like the world. And then I finished chapter 4, and I started writing like a little prologue that I wanted to do just to kind of like build in some extra, you know, detail about some like a particular thing. And it's empowering. I write because it's empowering, and it is a way for me to express my emotions in a constructive way. It's a kind of therapy for me, I think.
I agree with you 100% on that. And writing is a huge therapy. I mean, shit, I got back into writing in 2015 when that whole college debacle was going down, and I just had so much anger and rage and sadness inside of me. I was like, I need to get this out or I'm going to do something stupid. And so I basically took all those emotions and I transferred them onto paper and into my character. Which, it was funny, my aunt was reading the first copy that I sent her back, and she's like, this guy's got some anger issues. I was like, yeah, I did at the time.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly therapeutic. Or there are times when I was just sitting there and I just have motivation to not do anything. So then I'll just go and write. I also, unfortunately, I have a hard time getting through movies and TV shows because I'll be sitting there going, I could be working on my own creative things, and I'll pause it and I'll go do my writing.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. That's why it's taken me so long, because I binge watched the first season of The Boys, and I couldn't sleep. So
you're already into season 2. The entire
first season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm like 2 episodes into season 2, and then I finally got all moved into my apartment, and I was sitting there watching the second episode. I was like, this is really good. Fuck, I should write my thing so my thing isn't too influenced by this really good thing, and then people accuse me of stealing shit. That's such a worry. That's been a thing. Now that I'm actually doing it, obviously stories are the product of an author's experiences, right? Since time immemorial, you watch a movie, you read a book, there are they pull influences from places. Modern fantasy wouldn't exist without
That's
Tolkien
exactly what I was going to say.
Writing Lord of the Rings, right? And various other things, various other examples you can pull from different points of fiction. A lot of the stuff wouldn't exist if people didn't think about if not for Lord of the Rings, then no Game of Thrones, basically. That's kind of how it works. And so you're every person is the product of what they have experienced. And so, the worry is that what if I pull too hard from this thing that I like? And so that's kind of the tightrope that you walk, is making sure that you're not almost plagiarizing something else.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's definitely a tightrope. So me, I like to drop little homages to things that have definitely influenced. When I rewrote Occupant, I dropped a thing where one of the characters was from Tannhauser Station. Okay. And things like that. And that's Blade Runner wasn't so much of an inspiration for that, other than this would be a cool little thing to drop in there because I love the IP. But no, I get, and again, that's why I rewrote so much, especially with the thriller stuff, because initially it was very heavily influenced. Basically, I got started in that because of Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, the novel.
Right. I was going to say Tom Clancy stuff is probably a pretty big influence.
I think that was the big jumping off point. But then as I've gone and read and listened to more and more and more, whether it be W.B. Griffin, Jack Carr, Wilson, Andrews and Wilson, things like that, that has helped me basically learn different styles, but also develop and refine, my own style. And I think it's just something that comes with time and just practice and just doing it more and more and more and more. Because you could very well finish your project now and then shelve it for a year and then go back to it and basically rewrite it, but come out with a totally different presentation of the same story. If you did that.
Right. And it's one of those things where it's I think if you just kind of move in confidence, and that's why it's also important to have proofreaders and people you trust to look through your shit, just to make sure that you're not that's not, because that's what I think. I'm thankful that I have Zach and Cole to be people that look through what I've written, actually read through what I've written and just make sure, because they also enjoy some of the same kind of fiction that I do. And so they're a different set of eyes that can look at it and say, oh, you're pulling too hard from this thing, reel it back, or change this. And thankfully I haven't had to do that.
Your stuff is good, man. I love when you're hey, new audio. I especially love when you send me the new audio files, because then I can listen to it while I'm doing something else. And I'm a big fan of audiobooks and audio dramas and all that. To build off your point, actually, what's funny, so I only sent you guys a little clip of it, but I played the entire 4-minute audition of the audiobook audition for my dad when I was back home, because my dad really hasn't read anything that I've done, because little bit of backstory, make short story long again. Basically, when I really got into writing, he wasn't dismissive of it, but he was a little skeptical of it, because it was basically like, okay, this could be a good hobby, but you need to do something that's going to put food on your table and money in your bank account, and you can't bank on writing being that thing. So that's why I've always sort of approached writing as just a hobby and an escape from all the other mundane shit that I had to do. So I played that for him, though, and he sat there and he listened to it, and he looks at me and he just goes, I'm beyond impressed. Like, that was incredible. And that was like the affirmation. I was like, all right, I'm doing it right, you know? Because my dad,
your dad's like, yes,
yeah,
good.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes.
Because he was the one that got me into reading when I was a kid. Because he got me into reading when I didn't live with him. I still lived with my mother and my stepfather at the time, and they were all about the video games and the TV and all that, which is a good way to learn like media and all that. But I remember it started when my dad gave me a hardback copy of Moby Dick, and he said, I want you to read this, and I want you to tell me about it when I see you in 2 weeks. And I did. And then it moved from there to like Harry Potter. And then from there, Harry Potter to, they bought me this series called Pendragon. I don't know if you ever heard of that or not. I actually never finished that series. I need to go back and reread it in its entirety. Then when I was about 12 years old, my dad loaned me his hardback cover of Rainbow Six. He said, this is one of my favorite novels. You know, I think you would enjoy it. Because, you know, I'd always wanted to be in the military since I was a kid. Like, since pretty much as long as I can remember. And I read it and I fell in love with this. So then he had a couple more Clancy books. And then my grandmother and my grandfather, who just... my grandpa's unfortunately no longer with us, but my grandmother still does this, where they would go to like the used bookstore and they would just buy me Tom Clancy novels or W.E.B. Griffin books or whatever. And I would just read them. So I would get in trouble in school because I'd be reading the books I was interested in class and not reading whatever the fuck I was supposed to be reading at the time.
Right. I kind of got, so Harry Potter obviously was a big series for me. And what a blessing that series just appeared magically out of nowhere and didn't seem to have been written by anyone, right? Like, how crazy is that? But
you know, I never finished the series. I only read to like book 5.
Really? Oh man!
Yeah, and I never got past Prisoner of Azkaban, Alcatraz for the movies. Because no,
you had it right the first time.
I know.
Actually, it was Azkaban. Okay.
Abkhazia. Wait, no, that's in Georgia.
But a big one for me reading was Chronicles of Narnia. That was a big one.
I think I read the first one.
Yeah, I had a copy of all the little ones, and then my stepmom, she got me this big version of it that had all of them in one little tome. Cool. And and I have that one still. So yeah. But yeah, I guess that's just about it.
Man, I love talking shop. This was good.
Yeah, man, this is a very, very fun discussion. Thank you for suggesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope we get to follow. We'll have to follow up on it as like we start reaching more and more milestones and stuff like that.
Yes, I think when I finish, when I feel comfortable enough to commission the antagonists from Alex as well, I think we can do a follow up.
I think that's a great idea.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to do the thing with my hand now. So